When I was a kid, I experienced something so traumatic that my brain erased it from my memory. Completely. For years, it was just gone. At least it was until one afternoon. I was sitting on the couch with my son, watching random educational videos on YouTube. He's 6, full of energy and obsessed with learning videos. He wants to know everything about everything. It was nice, just the two of us hanging out, him curled up next to me, asking a million questions. Then it came on. The upbeat jingle and that cheerful sing-songy voice. Schoolhouse Rock. 3 is a magic number. Yes, it is. It's a magic number. Somewhere in the ancient mystic trinity, you get 3 as a magic number. My chest tightened immediately, like a fist had closed around my heart. I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. That song, that melody, it reached deep into my brain and pulled out something I didn't even know was there. The memories hit me like a freight train. Daddy? My son's voice was distant, muffled, like I was underwater. You okay? I blinked and realized I was staring at the TV. My hand clenched so tightly around the arm of the couch that my knuckles were white. My son was looking up at me, his face scrunched in confusion. I started to say something, anything to brush it off, but my throat felt like sandpaper. Daddy? He said again. I'm fine, I lied, forcing my hand to let go of the couch. I just need to run to the bathroom. I stood up, nearly tripping over the coffee table as I made my way to the bathroom. My legs felt weak, my whole body trembling. I gripped the edge of the sink, trying to steady myself. The song was still playing in the living room, that stupid happy voice echoing in my head. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30. It wasn't just a song. It was the song, the one they played to calm us down. When I was a child, I went to Crestwood Middle School. The school was large but very old. It had poor insulation, making it freezing in the winter and hot in the summer. No matter how much they tried to paint the place, it always looked outdated. The hallways echoed, the floors creaked. Hell, most of the faculty had been students there themselves as children. The rules were strict and the teachers didn't mess around. Dress codes, assigned seats at lunch, even how we walked in the hallways was monitored. It felt like every corner of the school was under their watchful eyes, even when you couldn't see them. Most of the staff at Crestwood were all about rules and discipline. They acted like they were running a military academy instead of an elementary school. But my favorite teacher, Ms. Harper, was different. She was warm, playful, like she actually liked kids. While the other teachers scowled and barked orders, she'd crack jokes and smile. She wore colorful dresses that swished when she walked, and her room always smelled clean, unlike the rest of the school, which smelled more like old books, old wood, and mildew. Everyone loved her. She was the one teacher who made me feel safe at that school. She'd ask about our hobbies, encourage me to draw or write stories, and even kept a stash of candy in her desk for when we did well on tests. But despite the safety of Ms. Harper's classroom, us kids couldn't help but feel uneasy at Crestwood. Maybe it was just the age of the school, maybe it was the rules, or maybe it was the rumors. Every kid in the school had heard them. Stories about kids disappearing, about strange noises in the vents, about the principal supposedly eating kids who misbehaved. It all sounded ridiculous. But at Crestwood, the line between weird and normal was thinner than at most schools. My best friend at the time was a kid named Alex. He was small for his age, with messy hair and a laugh that was contagious. We bonded over many things: Pokemon cards, PlayStation 2, but it was our shared obsession with urban legends that really fueled our friendship, and Crestwood was full of them. Whenever we heard a new one, we'd go off on missions to investigate them. Most of the time, it was harmless fun, investigating the haunted bathroom or trying to sneak into the teacher's lounge. But one day, we heard a new rumor. There was a hidden basement under the school. Over the next couple weeks, Alex and I started asking around about the basement rumor to the 8th graders. According to the stories, it was where the teachers took the bad kids. No one knew what happened down there. Some said that is where Principal Johnson eats kids. Some said it's haunted, or there was some kind of monster that lived down there. But one thing was certain: the kids who'd gone missing over the years, supposedly that's where they ended up. Alex was obsessed with the idea. "We have to find it," he told me one afternoon. "I don't know, man," I said, kicking a rock across the cracked blacktop. "What if we get caught? Or what if the rumors are true and we go missing?" He shot back, his eyes wide with excitement. "But what if we're the ones who finally figure it out? We'd be legends." I wasn't as enthusiastic as he was, but I went along with it anyway. It was hard to say no to Alex once he got an idea in his head. It didn't hurt that he was my only friend. That afternoon, after the final bell rang, we didn't head straight home. Instead, we stayed behind, hiding in the bushes until the coast was clear. "Okay," Alex whispered, peeking out. "Now's our chance." We slipped back into the building through a side door that never quite latched properly. The halls were silent. Just being in the school while it was empty was unsettling enough by itself. "Where do we even start?" I whispered. Alex pointed down the hallway toward the janitor's closet. "Mark said it's somewhere near there." Mark was an 8th grader, the loud and obnoxious kind. I didn't trust him, but Alex did. We crept down the hall, our sneakers squeaking softly on the floor. The janitor's closet was locked, as expected, but Alex had come prepared. He pulled an old, expired credit card from his pocket he had gotten from his parents and started fiddling with the door. "Do you even know what you're doing?" I muttered, glancing nervously over my shoulder. "Shut up and keep watch," he hissed. It only took him a few minutes to get the door open. I was about to congratulate him when I saw the look on his face. Dude?" I turned to see what he was looking at. Inside the closet, behind the rows of cleaning supplies and buckets, there was a small door. Neither of us said anything for a moment. "So, do we open it?" Alex asked, his voice trembling just a little. I wanted to say no. Every instinct in my body was screaming at me to get out of there. But Alex was already reaching for the latch. Alex pulled the door open, revealing a narrow, dark hallway. "Whoa," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. The walls were old brick, and the floor was plain, cracked concrete. The only light came from the janitor's closet, spilling weakly into the space. At the far end of the hallway was an old wooden door with a padlock dangling from its latch. "Okay, it's locked." "Let's go," I said, my voice shaky. But Alex wasn't listening. He was already going down the hallway. "Alex!" I hissed, glancing over my shoulder toward the main hall. "Come on, man, this is stupid. We're gonna get caught." "Nobody's even here," Alex said, his voice echoing slightly off the cold walls. "It's fine, just come on." I hesitated, my heart hammering in my chest. The silence in the school was oppressive. My heart was beating out of my chest. But I couldn't leave Alex there alone. With a sigh, I went after him, the cold, stale air of the hallway hitting me like a slap. Alex stood at the far end of the hallway, staring at the padlocked door. He reached out and jiggled the lock. "It's old," he said. "I bet we could break it." "Or," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we could leave. Right now." "This is crazy, Alex. We'll get in so much trouble." Alex ignored me. He turned back toward the janitor's closet and climbed up. For a split second, I felt relief, thinking he was giving up. Then I heard the scrape of metal. "What are you doing?" I called out. Alex came back into view, struggling to carry a red fire extinguisher. "If we can't pick it, we'll just smash it." "Are you serious?" I said, panic rising in my voice. "That's going to be so loud." "So what? Nobody's here," he said, grinning. "Relax, dude." Before I could argue, he hoisted the extinguisher and swung it at the padlock. Clang! The sound was deafening in the tiny hallway. I flinched, glancing up at the door. fully expecting someone to come storming in. "Alex, stop," I hissed. "We're gonna get caught." But Alex just shook his head. "One more and it'll break." He raised the extinguisher again and brought it down with all his strength. The lock gave way, clattering to the ground. "There," Alex said triumphantly, dropping the fire extinguisher with a thud. "See? Told you it'd be fine." I wanted to scream at him, to beg him to leave, but he was already reaching for the handle. "Alex?" I started, but it was too late. He pulled the door open. Alex pulled the door open, and both of us leaned forward, holding our breath as we peered into whatever was on the other side. Behind the door, there it was. A set of old stone steps, worn smooth in the center, descended into pitch blackness. The air that wafted out was damp and stale, carrying a faint sour smell that made my throat feel tight. There was no light down there, just stairs descending into a dark abyss. Alex, who had been so full of bravado a moment ago, froze. I could feel his confidence drain out of him like air from a punctured balloon. He said, his voice shaky for the first time. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stood there staring at those stairs, my body cold and rigid. "Okay," Alex finally said, his voice an awkward mix of forced confidence and creeping fear. It's just stairs. Probably like storage or something, right?" I didn't answer. Alex looked at me. His expression changed from fear to half a grin. "Come on, dude. Don't wimp out on me now." "I'm not wimping out," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I mean, what if there's someone down there? What if the rumors are true?" "There's no one here," he said, a little too loudly, like he was trying to convince himself more than me. "The whole school's empty. It's fine." Neither of us moved, but I couldn't shake the feeling we were being watched. "Look," Alex finally said, swallowing hard. "I'll go first. You just stay close, okay?" I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to grab him and drag him back out of the hallway, out of the school, back into the safety of the sunlight. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded. Alex took a shaky breath and stepped forward, his sneaker scuffing against the edge of the first step. Just as Alex was about to step onto the first stair, we both heard it. A faint sound, almost melodic, coming down the hallway. Whistling. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. "Crap, the janitor," I urged to Alex. Alex turned to look at me, his eyes wide. His hand instinctively reached for mine, like we were about to get caught doing something we couldn't explain. I quietly scrambled back up the hallway, silently closing the door inside the closet, praying it wouldn't make a noise. We pressed ourselves against the brick walls of the hallway, barely breathing. The whistling was getting closer, and I could hear the shuffle of heavy boots on the floor and the jingling of the janitor's keys. We could hear him digging through the janitor's closet, getting his cleaning supplies. I could hear him humming a tune, something old and off-key as he worked. My pulse was racing. I felt like my skin was vibrating with anxiety. We waited in the dark hallway, holding our breath, not daring to make a sound. The whistling grew louder, then softer again as the janitor started moving further down the hall. I could hear him muttering to himself now, probably complaining about some mess he had to clean up. Then, finally, the sound of his footsteps faded into the distance, and we were left with nothing but silence and the darkness of the hallway. When the coast was clear, I breathed a sigh of relief. Alex and I let go of each other, not realizing we had been grasping onto each other in the darkness. When we finally left the closet back out into the light, Alex was pale, his eyes wide, and I could tell he was just as freaked out as I was. "Okay," I whispered. "We need to leave. Now." Alex didn't argue. He just nodded quickly, his mind already scrambling to process what had almost happened. We snuck back out of the school, our breath heavy. I couldn't shake the image of the stairs, the darkness below, but we didn't talk about it. Not yet. We made it out of the school without anyone noticing, and as soon as we were outside, the evening air felt like an instant relief. Alex and I started the walk to our houses. Alex was the first to speak. "So, we proved it," he said, his voice a little shaky but excited. I nodded slowly, my adrenaline still rushing through me. "Yeah, we did." We both stood there for a moment, the weight of what we'd found settling in. "I knew it," Alex said with a grin. "It's real, the basement. Dude, I can't wait to tell everyone. We're going back. Next time we bring equipment, flashlights, cameras, everything." I was hesitant at first, the fear from earlier still lingering in the pit of my stomach. But as Alex spoke, something else started to creep in. Excitement. We both paused for a moment, looking at each other, before erupting in cheers and high fives. The next day, we came prepared. Flashlights, a camera, snacks. Everything we thought a good mission should have. We spent the morning rehearsing what we'd say if anyone caught us. We were ready. After school ended, we hung back, waiting in the bushes again. When the coast was finally clear, we snuck back into the school, just like we did the day before. We reached the janitor's closet, and Alex, with his usual bravado, yanked the door open. But before either of us could move, a hand shot out from behind us, gripping my shoulder like a vice. I froze. My heart stopped cold in my chest. "Going somewhere?" The voice was low, gravelly. I whipped around to see the principal standing there, his face twisted in anger, his eyes sharp with menace. In his hand, he held the broken lock from the basement door. For a split second, my mind went blank. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. All of our planned responses went out the window. Alex was the first to break the silence. He stammered, his voice high-pitched with fear. "Please, don't eat us." I glanced at him, my stomach sinking. There was no time to process it. He stood there looming over us, his anger palpable. I opened my mouth to apologize, but nothing came out. All I could manage was a breathless, "Sorry, we weren't going to do anything." The principal stared at us for what felt like an eternity. His eyes were filled with a dangerous look of authority. But then, just like that, his expression softened. He let out a harsh chuckle. "Eat you? Ha ha ha. No, I'm not going to eat you." He shook his head, almost amused. I felt my body start to relax, but the unease didn't go away. Not completely. "You two better get out of here," the principal continued. "And don't let me catch you doing something like this again." We didn't argue. We didn't even say anything. We just nodded, backing away slowly. I glanced over my shoulder as we turned to leave. When I looked back, the principal was still standing there, staring at us, like a predator watching its prey. It wasn't a look of concern or disapproval. It was something else, something darker, more dangerous. I had a feeling that he knew exactly what we'd been up to, that he had been watching us all along. I went home that night expecting a call home to my parents. I kept checking the phone, waiting for it to ring, but nothing came. No call, no angry voice telling me I was in trouble. The next day, I went to school with a pit in my stomach. Every minute felt like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see the principal or one of the teachers waiting to pull me aside. But nothing happened. The day passed normally, almost too normally. But as I walked through the halls, I started to notice it. The teachers, all of them, seemed to be watching me. Not in the usual way, like when they were making sure I was paying attention. No, this was different. Their eyes followed me more intently, like they were keeping track of my every move. It made my skin crawl. I tried to shake it off, but I couldn't. It felt like I was the center of attention, and not in a good way. Every time I looked up, one of them was watching me, their gaze colder than it should have been. I had to talk to someone. There was only one teacher I trusted, Ms. Harper. She was always kind to me, always listened when I needed her. I'd always felt safe around her, like she was the only one who didn't treat me like just another student. So during lunch, I made my way to her classroom. "Ms. Harper?" I said, standing in the doorway. She looked up from her desk, her usual warm smile softening when she saw the look on my face. "Yes, honey?" I hesitated. I wasn't sure where to even start. How could I explain everything? I need to tell you something," I said, voice trembling. "Something happened. Something's not right here." She motioned for me to come in, and I stepped inside, my heart pounding. I told her everything: the basement, Alex, the principal, how we'd found the hidden door and almost gotten caught, how the principal had known what we were up to. I even told her about how the teachers had been watching me, like they knew something I didn't. When I finished, there was a long silence. Ms. Harper didn't say anything for a moment, just stared at me, her face unreadable. She smiled, that warm, reassuring smile she always had. "It sounds like you've been through a lot. I'll take care of it, okay? You don't have to worry. Everything will be fine, and I won't let anything happen to you or Alex." She reached into her desk drawer, pulling out a piece of candy. She handed it to me, her eyes soft with what looked like genuine care. "Here, candy makes everything feel better," she laughed, her voice gentle. I trusted her. She was the one person at this school who'd always been kind to me, always made me feel safe. I unwrapped it and popped it into my mouth. Immediately, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. My mouth turned dry, my head a little foggy. A heaviness settled in my chest, and the world around me began to blur at the edges. My legs felt weak, my balance off. I reached out for the desk to steady myself, but it felt like the room was tilting. I blinked, trying to focus. "Miss Harper," I whispered, my voice barely a sound. She was sitting there, still smiling. And then the darkness started to close in. My vision tunneled, everything going black around the edges, the room fading into shadows. I tried to take a step, tried to keep my feet under me, but my body wouldn't listen. The last thing I saw before everything went dark was her smile. I woke with a jolt, my breath sharp and shallow. My body ached all over, and my head throbbed. I was sitting upright in an old wooden chair. My arms were tied to the back of it. I panicked, pulling against them, but they wouldn't budge. I tried to shout, but my throat was dry. My mouth tasted like something foul, and for a moment all I could do was sit there, taking in the world around me, trying to understand what had happened. The room was cold, and the walls were made of rough old stone, chipped and cracked, as if they had been standing for centuries. The air smelled of dust and mildew. There were shelves lining the walls, stacked high with old books, the titles unreadable. Other things sat on the shelves too. Strange jars with unidentifiable contents, faded photographs, and other old knickknacks. In front of me there was a small old table with an even older TV on it. The screen was dark for now, but I couldn't help but stare at it, dread rising in my chest. What was this place? Why was I here? Why was I tied to this chair? Then next to me I noticed someone else there. Alex was tied to a chair next to me. I began to understand why I was there, and I knew then exactly where we were. The basement. He was sitting next to me, slumped over, still unconscious. His wrists were bound to the chair just like mine, and his head lolled forward. I tried to get his attention. "Alex," I rasped, my voice weak and hoarse. "Alex, wake up!" But there was no response. He didn't stir. He was breathing softly, like he was sleeping peacefully. Panic surged through me again. I jerked against the ropes, trying to loosen them, to get free. I had to get out of here. Whatever they had brought us down here for, it wasn't good. I began to sob, thinking of my parents. The door creaked open. I froze, and my breath caught in my throat. It was Miss Harper. She walked into the room, calm as ever, her movements graceful, like she didn't have a care in the world. Her soft smile never faltered as she came toward me, the same smile she always wore in class. the one that made you feel safe, like you were in good hands. But now, in this place, that smile didn't feel like reassurance. It just felt wrong.
"Hey there," she said, her voice sweet, almost sing-song. "You're awake. That's good. You're going to be just fine." I swallowed, my heart racing. "Ms. Harper, what's going on? Why did you do this? What's happening?" She didn't seem in any rush to answer.
She just continued to smile, her eyes soft and kind. "It's okay," she said, her voice gentle. "It'll all be over soon. You don't have to worry." My mind reeled, my thoughts scrambled, but I couldn't think of anything else to ask. Nothing that would make sense. My eyes kept flickering between Alex and the door, trying to find an escape, trying to piece together how I'd gotten here. "Ms. Harper leaned down, brushing a stray lock of hair from my face. "You're nervous, aren't you?" she asked, her voice warm, soothing. "It's okay. I understand. It's hard, but it won't be for much longer." "Here," she said as the flicked on the TV and turned on the VCR. "Watch some cartoons while you wait. It'll help calm you down." And then the screen on the TV flickered to life. The familiar song of Schoolhouse Rock began to play, its upbeat melody grating against the cold silence that had settled around me. I hadn't heard it since elementary school. 3 is a magic number. I tried to turn to Alex, tried to wake him, but he didn't respond. His head hung limp against the chair, his chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. The song played on, and the numbers rang out one by one, each one a nail in the coffin of my sanity. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27. My thoughts raced with the melody of the song. 30. And then the door opened again. Several figures entered, their forms draped in dark flowing robes. They moved silently, gliding across the room like shadows. They came toward me, and I tried to scream, tried to struggle, but my body wouldn't obey. They untied me from the chair with ease, their hands cold and impersonal. I was too weak to fight back, too dizzy to scream. They dragged me and Alex out of the room. We made our way down the hall, past flickering oil lamps hanging along the walls. I begged them to let me go. My voice was weak, barely a whisper, but I couldn't stop myself. "Please," I pleaded, my throat raw. "Please let me go. I don't know what's happening. I won't tell anyone, I swear." But they didn't respond. Their faces were hidden by the hoods of their robes, and they didn't even slow down. They just kept dragging me, my feet scraping against the cold stone floor, my body too weak to do anything but stumble along. Alex was still unconscious, his body limp as they pulled him alongside me. I tried to look around to find something, anything that could explain this. We moved through a narrow hallway lit by flickering oil lamps and into a large room. It felt like stepping into a nightmare. The air was thick with the scent of incense, heavy and suffocating, and the walls were adorned with grotesque carvings and strange symbols I didn't recognize. But it was the center of the room that made my stomach drop. There was a pool in the middle of the floor, but not a pool of water. It was dark, black as midnight, and the liquid inside shimmered almost like oil. The faint smell that emanated from it made me gag. At the far end of the room there was an altar, a massive stone slab, its surface covered in something I couldn't identify. Around the altar, skulls and horns of different animals were mounted on the walls, arranged in sickening patterns. Some of them were small, others large, their hollow eyes staring out at me with a dead, unblinking gaze. The place felt ancient. But it was the symbol above the altar that sent a chill racing down my spine. It was carved into the wood, twisted and warped. I couldn't make out all the details, but the shape of it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I knew deep down that whatever it wasn't something meant to be seen. They dragged me to the center of the room. My knees hit the cold stone with a sickening thud, the impact sending a jolt through my already battered body. I couldn't keep myself upright. My head was swimming and everything felt distant, like I was barely tethered to reality. Alex was still out, his body slumped in a heap beside me. I wanted to reach out to him, shake him awake, but my hands wouldn't move. The figures who had dragged us in were standing in a perfect circle around us. The only sound was the soft, steady rhythm of their chanting. I couldn't understand the words. They weren't in any language I knew, but it didn't matter. The sound was enough to send a deep, primal fear racing through my chest. And then the chanting stopped. A figure stepped forward. They were taller than the others, their robe a deep crimson that caught the dim light from the oil lamps. They reached up and pulled back their hood, revealing a face I would never forget. It was the principal. One by one, the figures removed their hoods, revealing the faces everyone I had known as my teachers. The faculty, the entire faculty, even the lunch lady was there. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. My body trembled, the terror crawling through every part of me. "Please, let us go," I managed to choke out, but my words were nothing more than a whisper in the thick silence. "Please don't do this." But the principal just stood there, his eyes cold and unreadable. "This is necessary," he said. "It's been written. It's time." I wanted to close my eyes, to block it all out, but I couldn't. I was trapped. There was nowhere to run, no way to escape. The chanting started again, this time louder, rising in intensity, until it felt like it was vibrating the walls themselves. Alex finally stirred, his eyes fluttering open, a mix of confusion and fear on his face. He tried to sit up, mumbling something, his voice slurred and groggy. The figures, now a tight circle around us, closed in even closer, their movements silent but purposeful. Alex tried to struggle against the hands that held him, his voice rising in panic. "Where are we? What's happening? Let me go." But no one responded. The chanting grew louder, more insistent, the sound echoing off the cold stone walls. I felt the grip on my own arms tighten. Alex broke down, tears streaming down his face. "Please, please, let me go," he sobbed, his body trembling violently. One of the figures holding me let go. They turned their full attention to Alex, and the rest of the group moved in closer. I could barely see Alex's face through my own tears. "No," I shouted, fighting against the last figure holding me, trying to reach him, but it was too late. The faculty members, those twisted, hooded figures, grabbed him, holding him down. "Wait!" I cried, desperation twisting my voice. "Please, let him go! We didn't do anything!" But they didn't respond. One of them reached out and grabbed Alex by the arms, dragging him forward. Alex was screaming now, his voice a desperate, tortured sound that echoed through the room. "No, no, no!" And then they threw him into the pool. Alex emerged once, gasping for air, his face covered in the thick black substance. His scream was a gargled, terrifying sound, almost inhuman, before he sank back under the surface. The figures continued their chanting, their voices blending into a low, ominous hum. I fought harder against the hands holding me, thrashing and kicking, anything to get to Alex. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice hoarse. "Please, stop!" But they ignored me, their focus completely on Alex in the black pool. I took my chance. The figure holding me was distracted, their eyes locked on the others. I bit down hard on their hand, feeling the warm, metallic taste of blood fill my mouth as I tore away. The figure cursed, reeling back, and I pushed off with all my strength, throwing myself forward. I ran, my heart pounding, my legs moving on instinct. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just had to get out of there, away from the chanting, away from them in that room. I heard a shout, the sound of robes rustling as they pursued me, but I didn't look back. The air in my lungs burned with each breath, my body aching as I crashed through the door and out into the hallway. I ran down the hallway, past the oil lamps and back up the stairs. I burst out of the janitor's closet and I didn't stop until I was outside into the cold night air. I didn't look back. I couldn't. All I could do was run. I finally made it home, my body shaking from the cold night air, my mind racing 100 miles an hour. As I got to my driveway, I saw the police car parked outside. When I walked through the door, my parents were waiting for me, both of them standing in the living room with tense expressions. My mother's face was pale, her hands wringing in front of her, and my father stood next to her, looking at me like I was some kind of criminal. "Where have you been?" my mom demanded, her voice sharp. "Do you know how worried we've been? The police have been looking for you." I didn't even care about the questions. All I cared about was what had happened to Alex, what I had seen, what I had barely escaped. "What happened?" my dad asked, though there was a coldness to his voice that didn't make sense. He was acting as if he was more annoyed than concerned. I told them everything. The basement, Alex, the figures, the chanting, the pool. I expected some kind of reaction from my parents, some kind of urgency, but their faces were surprisingly blank. But before I could say anything more, one of the officers who had been standing in the corner of the room, keeping a distance, stepped forward. He was tall, his uniform neatly pressed. "We'll take care of it," he said, giving me a brief nod. He turned to my parents. "We'll look into it. Don't worry. We'll get to the bottom of this." The officer didn't say anything more, but when he glanced at me one last time, I caught it. That subtle shift in his expression, that look that told me everything I needed to know. He knew. He knew exactly what had happened, and he was a part of it. I could feel it in my bones, the sick realization crawling through me, like something cold and dark. He wasn't here to help. He was here to protect the truth. I felt like I was suffocating. My throat went dry, and the weight of everything, the faculty, the police, my parents, crushed down on me all at once. I began to question everything, every little detail. Did my parents know? Were they involved too? The way they stood there, their eyes darting around nervously, I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe they were complicit. Maybe they had been protecting me all these years, keeping me blind to the truth. I couldn't trust them. Not anymore. That night as I lay in my bed, my thoughts spinning in circles, I knew what I had to do. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't stay in this town, surrounded by lies, by people who were part of something so much worse than I could ever have imagined. I knew it'd be just a matter of time before they finished the job. I packed a bag, grabbed what little I had, and without a word to anyone, I slipped out of the house. I didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. I couldn't. There was no one to trust anymore. I knew that cult, or whatever they were, would get me if I stayed. It was only a matter of time. I ran, my heart pounding in my chest, my feet pounding against the pavement, as I made my way down the empty street, away from my house, away from everything I had ever known. As I disappeared into the night, I knew one thing for sure. I would never return home. Not now, not ever. I stood there, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my face pale, my eyes hollow. The memory, the horrors, they were all crashed back to me at once. I could hear the faint echo of 3 as a magic number still ringing in my ears, though it had long since faded from the screen. Splashing cold water onto my face, I tried to snap myself out of it. I leaned over the sink, my hands gripping the edge. I couldn't help but wonder what had happened to me, and what had happened to Alex. Bringing myself back to the present, I left the bathroom, my son waiting for me outside. "You feel better, Daddy?" he asked. "Yeah, I'll be okay." "Hey, let's go grab some ice cream, buddy," I said. Leaving the house, my neighbor Nick was outside, trimming his bushes. "Hey, neighbor," I gave him a wave. But as I got in my car, I couldn't help but notice something. He was watching me still, holding his shears, his smile faded, and he was looking at me with that familiar, knowing look. The voicemail from tomorrow. At 2:14 a.m., Alex's phone buzzed. One new voicemail. He frowned. "Who leaves voicemails at this hour?" Half asleep, he played it. Static filled the speaker. Then a voice came through, breathing heavily. "Alex, listen carefully." His chest tightened. The voice was his own, exactly the same. "What the—" the message continued. "You have about 3 minutes." Alex sat up in bed. "What is this?" On the voicemail, his future voice sounded terrified. "Don't open the bedroom door." Alex slowly looked at the door across the room. Closed, locked. His heart started beating faster. "What are you talking about?" The voicemail crackled. "Something is going to knock." Right then, knock. Alex jumped, one slow knock on the bedroom door. His stomach dropped. "No way." The voicemail continued. "Do not answer it." Another knock. Knock. Alex walked closer to the door. "Who's there?" No answer. Only silence. Then the voicemail voice whispered urgently, "Stop! Don't ask that." Alex's hand hovered near the handle. "Why?" The voicemail responded, "Because it learns your voice." A third knock echoed through the room, slower this time. Knock. Alex stepped back, his breathing shaky. "What is it?" The voicemail crackled again. His future voice sounded weaker now. "I opened the door." Alex froze. "And?" he whispered. On the voicemail, "It was me." A cold wave spread through his chest. "What?" The voice continued. "It looked exactly like me." Alex stared at the door, but its eyes were black. Another knock came, louder, more impatient. Knock. Alex backed away slowly. On the voicemail, his future voice whispered, "It's trying again." Alex's throat tightened. "What do I do?" The voicemail answered quietly, "Stay in the room until morning." Alex nodded to himself. "Okay." Then something terrifying happened. The knocking stopped. Complete silence. Alex relaxed slightly. Maybe it left. Then his phone buzzed again. New voicemail received time. 2:17 a.m. He opened it slowly. Pressed play. His own voice spoke again, but calmer this time. "You made the wrong choice." Alex's blood ran cold. "What?" The voicemail continued. "Because it doesn't want you to open the door." His heart pounded. "It wants you to turn around." A slow creak sounded behind him, from inside the room. Alex turned slowly. Standing in the corner of his bedroom was someone who looked exactly like him. Same clothes, same face, same voice, but the eyes were completely black. The copy smiled slowly. "You should have opened the door," it said. Behind Alex, the bedroom door slowly unlocked, and something outside knocked once more. Knock. The next morning, Alex left for work like normal. Nothing looked strange, except now his phone sends voicemails every night at 2:14 a.m. Messages recorded in his own voice, warning the next version of him, about something knocking on the door and something else already inside the room. The security camera. Mark worked the night shift as a security guard in a small office building in Dallas. The job was easy. Sit at the desk, watch the cameras, drink coffee, stay awake until morning. There were 16 cameras in total. Hallways, parking lot, lobby, stairs, all normal. At 2:46 a.m., something strange appeared on the monitor. A new camera feed. Camera 17. Mark frowned. There is no 17. He leaned closer to the screen. The camera showed a long hallway, dim lights, gray carpet, closed doors. It looked like part of the building, but he didn't recognize it. Maybe the basement. He checked the building map. No hallway like that existed. Still curious, he watched the feed. Nothing moved. Just an empty corridor. 5 minutes later, someone appeared on camera 17. A man walking slowly down the hallway. Mark straightened in his chair. Finally, he zoomed in. The man looked familiar. Same height, same jacket, same haircut. Mark's stomach tightened. The man on camera 17 was him, walking down the hallway, looking confused. What the hell? Mark turned around instinctively. The real hallway behind him was empty. When he looked back at the monitor, the version of him on camera 17 stopped walking. He turned toward the camera, looking directly into it. Then he raised his hand and waved. Mark's heart started pounding. That's not funny. The monitor flickered. Now the man on camera 17 began walking toward the camera. Closer, closer, until his face filled the screen. His eyes were completely black. He smiled. Then he spoke. But the sound came from the security office speakers. You're watching yourself. Mark stumbled back from the desk. No. The man on the screen tilted his head. You shouldn't do that. The camera feed suddenly changed. Now camera 17 showed the security office. Mark froze. The angle was from the corner of the ceiling, looking down at him. The same room he was standing in, except in the video, someone else stood behind him, tall, thin, standing perfectly still. Mark slowly turned around. The room was empty. But on the monitor, the tall figure began walking toward him. Slow steps, dragging feet. Mark's breathing became shallow. This isn't real. On the screen, the figure reached him, placed a hand on his shoulder. Mark felt something cold touch his back. He screamed and spun around, still nothing there. But the monitor now showed him turning, looking straight at the camera, and smiling, even though he wasn't smiling. Mark touched his face. His mouth slowly stretched wider. Without his control, on the monitor. The copy leaned closer to the camera and whispered, Camera 18 is ready. The screen glitched. Camera 17 disappeared. Now the monitor list showed 1, 2, 3, 16, 18. Mark stared at the number. There was never an 18. The new camera feed turned on. It showed a hallway, dim lights, gray carpet, closed doors. At the end of the hallway, someone was walking slowly toward the camera. Mark leaned closer. His blood ran cold. It was another version of him. Confused, looking around, exactly like he had earlier, walking down a hallway that didn't exist. Security records in that building in Dallas say the camera system still works normally, but sometimes a new camera appears late at night. Camera 17. And if someone watches long enough, they might see themselves walking somewhere they've never been. Yet.